Hello, my name is Heather Cohen, and I'm a coordinator in an Office of Student Conduct at a large public four-year university. My role is to meet with students who allegedly violate university policy. So that can be anything from drugs and alcohol-related incidents to academic misconduct. Our process is fundamentally educational, so what that means is that we get to know the student, we have a conversation about what happened, but really we focus on how is it that they can move forward. Broadly speaking, the student's actions or the actions of those around them conflict with the university expectations. So it is my job to navigate the conversation to help the student understand why their behavior is not tolerated by the university. I guess you could say that managing conflict is the majority of my job function. A lot of students that I meet with never been in trouble before. And so when we have conversations, they tend to get emotional and sometimes even combative. Through this course, I've learned about various skills and tools that I am hoping to continue to use throughout my time in this role, and I'm excited to talk through a couple of those right now. The first concept is psychological safety. This tool is critical in the work that I do. If a student does not feel comfortable talking to me, they're going to shut down and not tell me anything. To help create that atmosphere, I like to have the student talk about themselves before we even begin to talk about why it is that they're there meeting with me. Doing this helps the student see that I see them as a person. They're not just some name on a piece of paper. They're not their student ID number. They are a human being. And I think that by creating that feeling, it allows them to feel a little bit more comfortable with me. I also use a lot of active listening skills and perspective taking. I think the perspective taking works really well because it allows the student to see and hear that I'm actually listening to what they're saying. Because after they're done telling me their story about what happened that day or that night, I paraphrase it back to them for a couple of reasons. First, to make sure I understand what it is that they're telling me, and to also give them the opportunity to kind of fill in those gaps. When they're meeting with me, they're usually pretty nervous and they may forget things. So as I'm paraphrasing things back to them, it's an opportunity for them to say, oh, also this happened. And oh, well, actually this is how it happened, not that way. And so I find that perspective taking and paraphrasing is really important to do within these meetings. Most of the conversations I have reflect on their decision-making skills. A lot of students find themselves in groupthink situations though, where they would rather go along with whatever the group is doing so that they can fit in with the social circle that they're trying to be a part of. To mitigate that groupthink mentality though, I like to make sure that whatever it is that I sanction them is something that's going to help them reflect on how that decision has negatively impacted them or impacted those around them. I think it's really important too that when I'm meeting with these students, I frame the outcome as positively as possible. No one likes to be sanctioned to do anything. I don't even like to do homework half the time, okay? So I highly doubt they're gonna like that I'm giving them these extra educational sanctions to complete on top of the work that they're already doing in their classes. But that's why getting to know the student and figuring out what happened in the incident helps me determine what educational sanctions are going to be best for the student, and it's going to be something that hopefully they'll want to engage in. So that really brings in that concept of framing, trying to frame these sanctions as a positive outcome. And I will say a lot of them are usually fairly happy with the sanctions that I give them, but I think it's mostly because I tell them they're not getting expelled, which that's a whole different conversation in itself. I can tell you right now, we really don't expel students at all. So I think that they usually are just happy as well that they get to stay within the university. Another piece that I like to go into in my conversations with students is, like I mentioned before, reflection. Learning the concept of simple reflection versus critical reflection had me actually personally reflect on the conversations I have with students. Prior to this course, I did a lot of simple reflection with the student, meaning having them talk about what was the intent? What was the intent of their actions versus what actually happened, right? I hope moving forward that I'm able to do more critical reflection with them, whether that's in the actual conversation that we have or even through their educational sanctions, so that they can look more into not only their perspective of the incident, but how is their incident, how is their actions, their behaviors being perceived by those around them. To facilitate these conversations that are a little bit deeper than what students typically anticipate the conversations to be, I want to make sure that I'm continuing to have this foundation of safety, of respect, and of care throughout the entire conversation. No matter what the student says to me, I always treat them with respect. I always show them I care about you. You, like I said earlier, you are not just a person, or you're not just a number on a piece of paper. You're not just a name. You are a human being. And utilizing a lot of the concepts that I learned more about within the coursework, a lot of which I didn't mention here, is something that I hope to continue to do throughout my time in my job. And truly, there are so many concepts that I learned throughout this course that I anticipate using through various conflict situations in my role and even in my personal life. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this course, and I'm excited to continue learning throughout this program.